Peace, family. P.A. Finley, the Pathway, coming at you live once again. As I promised, I'm continuing my series on self-science. This is going to be part 8. I don't know exactly how many I'm going to do because I still ain't really got into the personal history, the individual history part, which is where a lot of the self-science exists. Part 8, continuing from my last one when I asked the question, why isn't there any personal written material from Jesus? We're going to go ahead and move on from that. So, talking about the last video, I got to talking about the history of God, as it were, in the beginning of the beginning. Previously, in a previous video of mine, I asked the question, before God said, "Let there be light," what was it? What was the situation? And I also suggested it had to be black. It had to be darkness. It had to be, if you gotta say, "Let there be light," if you walk in the room, man, somebody turn the lights on. That's because it's too dark, So, we can, from that inference, we can assume that from the darkness, from the blackness, came everything else. So we have to assume as well, if we follow that line of thinking, that God is black. What else could God be? Prior to the light, what was it? If everything was black, then where did God exist at that time? In the blackness, and through it, and of it. Is it? So I present to you that God is black. The root source is black. It blends in with the melanin product, and how deeply intertwined into the blackness that is, and what that is, how melanin just has so many deepnesses and so many levels of the original source material, that everything lines up. It lines up. And another thing I said in the last video is that the storyline that I presented when God split God's self in half, just to experience something else other than everything. Think about this. Okay, here's a good example. Not so much a good example, but a probability. Possibility, a probability. Let's just say in the song "Who Are You?", the hook is, "Do you know who you are? Do you know who you be? Do you know the one inside?" No. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you be? Do you know the one you don't call? Do you know the one you call me? Do you know the soul inside you? Do you know the spirit within? Do you know where you're going to go? Do you know where you've been? And we're going to chop on to the where you've been thing for a minute. Before you was born, just imagine. And remember, I'm going to make a video on imagination. All those who think that imagination is not unimportant, let me present this to you. If it can be imagined, it's only because it exists. There's nothing new. No idea, no thought, none of that stuff. None of this stuff is new. So imagination is viewing that which is beyond that which can be seen. That's all imagination is. So anyway, let's imagine prior to you was born. Let's imagine that you existed before you was born. And let's also imagine that you were, if you think about it, if you existed before you was born, and let's say you was a part of the source. Like you're a light, young Pharaoh presents that we are light beings coming from the light and entering into this reality. And that blends in. It blends perfect. It makes perfect sense as far as I'm concerned, because if we came from the source, imagine yourself in the source. Hypothetically, whatever, just open your mind. Imagine yourself in the source, a part of the source, one with the source. I mean, like literally that. You know what the source knows. You are aware of what the sources were. You're blended in. You're one. There's no separate. You're a drop of water in a lake or an ocean, and so you're one with the ocean. You're not. It's like you're in it. You're a part of it. So you know everything. You understand everything. You realize everything. The only way for you to not know something is to forget what you know. Well, not the only way. That's my limited thinking and my limited viewpoint. Obviously, there's probably billions of ways. Quadrillion, if I can make up a word. But from my limited perspective, one of the billions and trillions and quadrillions of ways of not knowing is to forget, is to experience what it is to forget. And think about it. If you think about this for a second, if you're in the pool of the source, if you will, and you're just, first of all, what the heck is that like? But you get what I'm talking about. Let's just say you're there. That's you, this is you. This is who you are. And see, this is knowledge itself. So I'm throwing this out there on the table. Listen, you can yay and nay, that's fine. It's probably 1,000 other people out there like, oh, heck no, man, this dude tripping. Anywho, so you're in this pool. Imagine you knowing everything. Come on, everything? The only thing you don't know, the only thing in existence that exists outside of what you know is not knowing. So here's a planet that you created because you're part of the pool, you're part of the source, you're in it, this is you, where you could not know. Whew. What a golden opportunity that would be. Are you kidding me? To know nothing? My hands, by the way, my hands are in my pocket. You notice I'm not touching my face, but actually it's pretty cold out here. I'm in California, Bay Area. It was like 30-something degrees. That's freezing to us. I don't know, the rest of the world is freezing, literally freezing, like sub-zero. And I'm plus 37, and I'm like, but that's how the world is. Anyway, so here's an opportunity to experience. First of all, I spoke on it earlier that Earth is like an amusement park. It's where you go to forget. You know what I mean? It's where you get your problems, your ills, your bills, the job, the work, the family, everything is, you're going to forget, man. Rides, roller coasters, the Ferris wheels. I mean, you're just going to have fun. Just for that particular point of time, just for that hour or whatever. Then you go back to the ground. That's kind of like what Earth is like. You can't, and then each one of the planets has its own experience that is unrealized to the whole one. Each planet has its unique experience that is unknown to the one. I guess I'm repeating the same thing. It's like the solar system, probably all physical existence is like this. Remember, there's the spiritual and the physical. The physical, I spoke on it, I'm speaking again. It was put to me very, very interesting. That the physical reality that what we know, the universe and stars and all this stuff on this planet, and we pretty much, everybody can pretty much vouch for sure that this planet, we know the globe. Okay, but we don't, a lot of people ain't never been all over the globe. I'm one, but I'm finna travel. But anyway, moving right along. In the physical plane, I'm finna travel the globe and see this thing before I leave it. Kind of like my graduation up out of here. But anywho, so we kind of know this thing exists. Everything else is suspect. We know the sun up there. We see the moon at night. This is stuff we can physically be like, yeah, let's see what y'all talking about. The rest of it, the other 8 planets, so-called 9 now, and matter of fact, the mothership is supposed to be in orbit. That's a whole nother conversation. We're just believing what other people are saying. The telescope. Even when we look at the telescope, the people are telling us what we're seeing. Okay, you see that little dot right there, that little spark right there? Yeah, that's Venus. Yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. A lot of this stuff we're taking for granted. Okay. But they were saying that all of this physical reality that is suggested to us and the stuff that we can actually experience through sight, all of that is a shimmer of the reality of the source. A mirage, if you will. And we know that the mirage is illusory. But it's there, but it's not. It's one of those things. And that's just because the one exists. So, that's some power. Dude. So, but all of this exists. All of the physical reality, if you will, exists just to experience something else outside of the source, which the source came up with the idea that all it had to do is separate itself, and here's the physical reality. Because prior to this, it was not just the spirit, it was just the source, that's it. So it's like, okay, if I separate myself from myself, that's the creation, that's the Big Bang Theory, and how everything started, and that was that. The creation, whatever, in the beginning. That's what all of it is. Is God saying, when God said, let there be light, that's another one, because it was darkness. It was blackness. And God said, let me make something else. Let me make an opposite. Let me divide myself, because there's nothing outside of it. Do you see the dilemma? There had to be some type of mystical way of doing this, because all is one. There's nothing outside the one, including even right now, there's nothing outside the one. All of this is happening within. So you're doing what you're doing. You're being you. You're blending in. And then there's an opportunity to blend out or to experience what that would be like. And it's only for a split second. I blink. That's it. Nothing is going to change. You're not going to cease to exist. It's ridiculous to even think that. It's a part of the delusion. It's a part of the not knowing. Death. Nothing dies. It's ridiculous. But it's ingenious to create a world that says it does. See, the mission, and I'm going to go right back to it. I'm not going to forget this time. I know I normally do. If the light goes out, y'all know what time it is. I'm working on a new place and different things, but this is how I'm separating myself from everything so I can just talk and focus on y'all. So, okay. Within this imagination, this possibility or whatever. Again, and I'm going to get back to that, but I got to say that this, if you think about it, this explains everything. It answers every question. There's not a question. You probably thinking of a question. You probably got all kinds of questions. But if you put this storyline into it, and then watch this. This is where the folly of hell and something being done to you for eternity. Nobody really believes that. I mean, we fear that. Matter of fact, most of our functions, daily functions, is based on that fear. We make decisions all the time based on the fear of hell. Even though we still do stuff that's going to send us to hell, we still fear going. But deep inside, what kind of God? I don't care how bad you are. I read a book called Conversations with God. I read many books, but anyway, one of them, Conversations with God. And this guy was talking to, doing what I do pretty much all the time. I'm just talking to oneself. God, as it turns out. And he really tapped in real deep. And he had opportunity to ask questions and everything. God said to this guy, Hitler went to heaven. If you can understand that, then you can understand me. Okay, I'm finna pause right quick in mid-pump.